It's time for game night. A look at all of the high school football games set for this weekend across the central Susquehanna Valley.
Hello and welcome to week 4 of the Daily Adams Game Night High School Football Podcast, sponsored by Bruiser's Sports Grill, located at 839 West Water Street in Cole Township. I'm Daily Adams Sports Editor Kurt Ritzman, and I'm joined by our lead football writer, Todd Hummel.
I'm so excited that we have a sponsor. Thank you, Bruisers.
So let's start with the big story, not just in football, but kind of all around, up at Danville.
What's going on at Danville?
Well, Coach Jim Kaiser, after being indefinitely suspended for the past 2 weeks, turned in his resignation on Monday. We're filming this Wednesday.
Really? No, I'm kidding.
There's a school board meeting tonight to vote to accept the resignation, probably. You can read all about that in Thursday's Daily Adam and Danville News.
So no idea what's going on. It seems like I gotta find a word that's not gonna get me in trouble. Somebody in the school board has a vendetta for Coach Kaiser. It seems like, just from what we've been hearing, some of the things that we've had in our newspaper. It's really interesting. Chris Coombe and the offensive coordinator and Brian Raup, the defensive coordinator, are co-interim coaches right now. And from all we hear, that's probably what's going to happen at the meeting tonight. And they've done a great job keeping these kids focused. Mm-hmm. I think you and I talked about last week. We thought it would be a little bit of trouble with Warrior Run, and they did a real good job pulling away in the fourth quarter and knocking off the previous undefeated defenders. Get another tough one this week with Mifflinburg. I think that's the biggest issue right now, is trying to keep those kids away from the stuff swirling around off the field. Let the coaches handle that, because that's kind of where seasons go down the drain, is when you're worried about other things than the football field. And I think they've proven over the last 3 weeks. I mean, obviously they have every right to think that they should be 3-0 after that Loyalsock game too, to keeping things on track. And this is obviously the best team Mifflinburg has played all season. I'm really interested to see how that game goes. But I wrote my column. Wrote my column last week about it, and I don't see how I can't write another column this week. But that's another issue. But I just feel bad for Coach Kaiser's, because he's one of the good guys, and whatever you think of him, he always cared about the kids. And I'm a little biased because he was always good to me. Whenever I called him, he always answered, or if we needed something, he always helped us out. And I think our competitors up at Bloomsburg would probably say the same thing. That he was great to us. It's just interesting to see. From what I hear, they have a crew of junior high kids that's real good there. This should be a job that everybody should want, except for the stuff off the field that has continually to plague this program, at least for the last 2 years, and behind the scenes almost since Jim took over. So, maybe the best thing for the program, despite him being a good coach, is maybe just to leave and find some place to go where he's a little more appreciated.
And now turning to on the field, tough Mifflinburg teams coming up. Mason Breed, Gary DeGroat Jr., Riley Stahl. They got a lot of nice offensive weapons, and their defense has been playing pretty well too.
Yeah, and like I said, this is the best team Mifflinburg has played so far this season. Bloomsburg, though, did a number on North Penn Mansfield Friday night, so that win does become more impressive. But it's going to be interesting to see. Warrior Run had a lot of problems blocking the stunts with, blocking up front and getting the run game going, and that's obviously where Mifflinburg makes their living. And they, early on, I think it was probably just a function of playing Milton, watching on TV. They struggled early on last week. Probably didn't play to the level that Coach Dressler wanted them to start the game, but they were able to pull away late. I think this is a game where we're going to see how good their passing game is. I think they're probably going to have to, Gary DeGroat is probably going to have to. I think he's thrown for 90 yards in the game. They haven't, not that he can. It's just they hadn't really have to, and I think that's where that's going to enter into things. Is they're going to have to move the ball a little bit through the air against Danville. I have no idea who's going to win this game. I'll go with the Ironman for now. Maybe my mind will change when I do my picks on Friday. It won't, just because I feel that's a cop out. But I think this, obviously, looking at this slate of games this week, this has a chance to be, other than that Jersey Shore Mount Carmel game out at the Silver Bowl, it probably has as good a chance as any to be the best game of the week.
Yes, you brought up the game at the Silver Bowl. Let's jump to there.
I'm not jumping to the Silver Bowl.
No.
It's a long jump.
The Red Tornadoes 2-1, coming off a nice win against Lewisburg, taking on 2-1 Jersey Shore, coming off their first loss of the year handily.
Anyway, it was
to Montoursville. 49-12, yeah.
And Jersey Shore actually jumped out to a 12-0 lead, and Montoursville bounced back. Maybe Montoursville's, we'll get to them at Warrior when they face Warrior Run this week, but, I had seen the Bulldogs the previous week, and, they were very balanced, and it looks like they weren't able to run the ball much against Montoursville. Tanner Larson, again, played pretty well at quarterback, but they just couldn't get the run game going. And that's going to be an interesting problem for them against Mount Carmel. I saw the Red Tornadoes against Lewisburg last week, and Lewisburg was able to move the ball in Mount Carmel at times. Kind of shot themselves in the foot with turnovers in the second quarter. But I was really impressed with the improvement Tommy Riesinger has made in the passing game, and they talked a little bit about they went to spread in the first 2 games of the season, and Tommy talked about going back to their old shotgun, rushing offense that they ran against Lewisburg on Friday night.
Yeah, it's obviously very important for us to bounce back after a tough loss against Southern on Saturday, but we're usually used to bouncing back like this, but yeah, it's pretty big.
Looked like you wanted to get the passing game going a little bit. Was that a function of kind of what went on last week?
Yeah, well, to start off the first 2 games, we tried to run new offense, spread them out a little bit, but then we went back to our base and something we're used to, so pretty good at it.
So you were pleased. Did you think Coach Dara and the players were pleased with how they bounced back from week 2 in Southern?
Oh, definitely, definitely. It was kind of funny. We talked a lot about how confident they were going into that Southern game, but Coach Dara said that, kind of with a rueful smile that they were used to it, at that point, and that they came back focused, and he really likes this group of seniors just for the amount of work that they have put in the off season. And I think the Red Tornadoes probably get this one on the Silver Bowl. I think this is probably between Montoursville and Mount Carmel where we kind of get a truer sense of where the Bulldogs are at this season.
We've got the team that Mount Carmel beat last week, Lewisburg 1-2, headed to Milton, just right across the river for a rivalry game.
Yeah, the Green Dragons and the Black Panthers. Lewisburg's probably feeling a little better about itself coming into this week if they don't turn the ball or fumble the ball away against Mount Carmel. In that first half, they had a chance, to score twice in that first half where, they fumbled the ball away plus a block punt in the second half. So that's almost like, that's a third turnover right there. And, this is a tough matchup for the Black Panthers again. Mifflinburg really ran the ball on them last week, and that's obviously what Lewisburg's going to want to do. In addition to Max Moyers, Ethan Dominic, who came on at the end of last season as a freshman, really has become a weapon for them in all facets. He's a pretty good linebacker, had the return for the fumble return for a touchdown, but they like to move him around in the formation, and I think he's probably key for them for the rest of the season, just to kind of keep teams from completely focusing on Max. And
sure.
I was also really impressed with their 2 wideouts. Dante Sims played pretty well the week before. Simeon Byler against Mount Carmel last week. I think they're doing a good job of what Coach I almost called him Coach Moyers, Coach Persing wanted to do in the fall is to get other people involved so they can't concentrate in Max, and that seems to be working fairly well. I think Lewisburg gets this one, and I want from watching Milton the last 2 weeks on TV, I really like Owen Keister, the running back. He seemed to break a couple runs, and I think once Aston Canella, who's a sophomore, gets some experience, he's going to be pretty good too.
Sure.
But again, Milton has these spurts in these games where they play well, but they really haven't put together even a full half yet. So that's something to look out for the Black Panthers. I'm sure Lewisburg hopes they wait a week or 2 for that, but yeah.
Southern Columbia, 3-0, has outscored their opponents, I think, 160-0. after a 76-0 win against the Selinsgrove Seals last week. Head to Shamokin. We talked last week about Shamokin. Tough road trip up to Mill Hall. Emerged with a 12-7 win to move to 2-1.
They had 14 penalties last week. Yeah. That was serious. That was an old Shamokin game, except for the fact that they won. They were able to get a Bryson James fumble return for a touchdown to come out with that one. I'm guessing they were probably looking a little bit of little ahead to this week. Obviously, Coach Henry Hajnowski played a couple years at Southern Columbia, I think. The Tigers are going to win, obviously. It's one of those things where I don't know. I don't know what else to say about Southern Columbia. I don't think, I think people think Montoursville might give them a game.
An actual game, or like, hey, it's 49-10.
Possibly. I think Montoursville would argue that point now, but man, Southern is playing so well, and teams are, haven't even scored on them yet. So we're up to 3 games this year would be 14 quarters without allowing a point so far. So, the defense is just playing so well, you forget about the offense. Gage Garcia set the state record for total touchdowns with his 130th in that Selinsgrove game. Even the backup defense scored a touchdown. Braden Heim hopped on a fumble and scored points. They got Fleming involved into the passing game. Finally, it's hard to believe that they're outscoring people 164-0. And Julian, the Ohio State recruit, scored his first 2 touchdowns against the Seals. So, right now, I think for Southern, I think Coach Roth would probably tell you he'd like to work a little bit on that passing game and, try and become a little more balanced. And for Shamokin, be the first one to score on that first team defense. But yeah, I think Southern wins this one. It's probably a rout again.
We got Warrior Run 2-1 coming off a loss to Danville, where again, same as last year, they did well first 2.5, 3 quarters, and Danville put away. Head to a Montoursville team at 3-0 that we think is pretty good.
Oh, yeah, and cheap plug. Cover story this week's on the Warrior Run Defenders was up talking to Riley Dalbert and Remington Quarterman today and Coach Long. This could be a tough test for them. They had some trouble with the Danville offensive line or defensive line last week. Montoursville's obviously no slouch up front. Got to see them in the scrimmage. Their offensive line did not miss a beat when they played Lewisburg. I think that's the most interesting result last week is 12-0 and then 49 straight points for Montoursville because, that seemed like, you get 12 down, it would be a close game, but that just seemed like it's kind of like a wake-up call for them. They got a big game from Rocco Paluzzi, the running back. He's kind of a new name for them this year. They've rotated the last 2 years at tailback, and he seems to be the man this year, and that allows them to put I almost called it Cam. Loganot, take Loganot out of the backfield and make him more of a one-way guy on defense and give them a little more depth. I think it's very clear that Montoursville is probably the best 3A team in District 4 unless, barring injury or anything. Mm-hmm. So, Montoursville wins this one. It's going to be interesting to see if, the Warrior Run passing game can keep it going. Remington leads the area and passing yards currently. Wow. So, that Montoursville secondary is a tough matchup for a lot of people. So that's probably the biggest thing I'd like to see.
Yeah, Warrior Run's got some nice wide receivers. You talk to Daubert, and they got Ahmad Keys on the outside who was...
Well, that allows people not to, concentrate on Riley, who I think is the 3rd all-time leading receiver and a 4-year starter for them. And, I think that's the biggest thing for Warrior Run is Coach Long has his pieces where he wants them now, and they've been humming on offense. Last week, I think they would have liked to get the running game a little bit. Again, it's going to be tough this week against Montoursville, but I think that's the goal for them. And but I think Montoursville improves to 4-0 in this one.
All right, we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, Bruiser's Sports Grill in Cole Township.
GDK Development of Shamokin is a proud supporter of all local and youth sports. The Welsh family has been in business for 37 years and thanks you for supporting them and their local businesses, including Bruiser Sports Grill in Cole Township and the Elysburg and Sunbury Burger King restaurants. Again, thank you for 37 years of support and good luck area athletes and teams this sports season from the Welsh family and GDK Development of Shamokin.
All right, to start the second half, I want to dive into probably our biggest rivalry game of the week. Teams have a combined 1-5 record, which isn't great through 3 weeks, but this could change the season around for the winner. 1-2 Selinsgrove headed to 0-3 Shikellamy.
Yeah, don't have a real good read on either of these teams yet. I kind of think, both defenses. Schick's defense has played well. I think Selinsgrove's defense would like to play a little better. They struggled up at Jersey Shore. I'm not sure how much last week counts.
Sure.
Because most teams have struggled with the Tigers, and surprisingly, despite losing 76-0, it seemed like Coach Hicks felt better about his team after that game than he did against Jersey Shore.
Wow.
And because they played hard. They played hard against Southern. He said they played better, and that's not something that they saw up at Jersey Shore. We talked last week about the Braves and just needing a win to be confident, and again that kind of proved itself on Friday night where they hung around Montoursville Loyalsock until the fourth quarter when that defense wears down and they're just going to have to find some sort of offense that they haven't had since that first game of the season where they were able to move the ball and control the clock and give that defense some of a rest. And it's going to be, the Selinsgrove. It's going to be an interesting Selinsgrove offensive line against the Shikellamy defense, especially early on, trying to get that offense going. The Seals don't have 100 yards combined in the last 2 games on offense. I don't think so. I think that's a big thing for them. And I think Selinsgrove, despite Shikellamy being 0-3, Selinsgrove might need this one worse because I really don't think they want to go up to Berwick next week, heading up to Crispin Field at 1-3.
Sure.
And I think if the Braves would lose this one, that the Braves have some winnable games in the middle of their schedule that would probably help them out as well. I think Selinsgrove wins this one. I think this one's going to be pretty close just because both these defenses will play pretty well in this one. But I think the Seals get this one, and both teams are in need of playing well, I think, this week, and it's going to be interesting over at Sunbury. And I'd like to say if I get back at 10:30 again on a Friday night from this one, something weird has happened.
I think it's interesting. Shikellamy defense has played well through 3 weeks. They've kind of been in all the games. Central got a little bit away from them late. Selinsgrove had a nice win week 1, but since then it's been outscored 112-0. But you like the Seals coming into the game. I guess it's just matchups, but it's a little interesting.
It is matchups, and it's Shikellamy offense has not. But then I say that, and Selinsgrove doesn't have 100 yards. But Selinsgrove has at least a positive offensive game against Lewisburg, where they played well and had real good balance. It's going to be, Schick really controlled the ball. I really think that's what they're really going to try and do, and take advantage of some of Selinsgrove's aggressiveness defensively. I wouldn't be surprised to see a trick play or two early. Not that Coach Tilford, not that Coach Hicks isn't used to that from his brother-in-law, but yeah, it's a pick 'em. I think this Seals win. Just they won last year, and both teams are fairly similar, but I think this is a pretty close game. It's always it'll at least be physical. How's that?
That sounds good. Midwest, you went out and saw Saturday. Didn't convert a late 2-point conversion in a 1-point loss to Springfield Township to drop to 1-2. Have a chance to even their record this week. They welcome 0-3 Shenandoah Valley.
Yeah, Shenandoah Valley struggled a bit. Former Pottsville coach Kevin Keating's trying to rebuild that program. Those of you that have been around a while remember them being in a couple playoff games with Southern Columbia in Class A back in the mid-2000s. Midwest had a real hard time stopping the Springfield Township quarterback, who had 182 yards rushing and I think 200 yards passing. Wow. They got hurt a lot. It was a lot of spread, a lot of motion. When the game started, Springfield Township really wanted to roll out and throw the ball downfield, and the Midwest defensive line just wouldn't let them have the time to do it. And they kind of went to more of a quick hitter, quarterback run game, and Midwest wasn't really able to stop it. Coach Hatter was kind of disappointed that they didn't play as disciplined as he would have liked them to. They should get better this week. Really impressed with Hunter Wolfley. Dude can make people miss. We saw that. Didn't really get. We saw that in the Marion game, but it continually happens. He leads the area in scoring actually with 7 touchdowns.
We could add 2 more that were called back in that week 1 game.
And they also, the other big thing for them is it really helps in their passing game. They struggled at times moving the ball on the ground, and they were able to get Oakley Bennett outside to either little passes to Trey Lawver, little out passes to the fullback that got them 8-10 yards when they needed it, a straight fly pattern to Hunter Wolfley. And then he ran 2 corner routes for a touchdown out of the slot too. So they're just finding different ways to get him the ball. I think I'm pretty sure they win this one. I think they'd like to get the running game established a little more. And their tough games are coming up. It's Jim Thorpe and I think Penns Valley soon too, who's putting up some fantastic numbers passing the ball. So I think Midwest is going to probably use this one to get a little better and try and get ready for those 2 big games upcoming.
We want to turn our attention to the Tri-Valley League. Line Mountain 2-1, coming off 2 wins after that loss to Tamaqua. The less said about the better for Eagles fans. Headed to 1-2 Juniata, and first year with a new coach.
Yeah, they struggled last week against Susquehanna. I think it was 28-7 at the half before they were able to put some things together in the second half to make the score a little more respectable. That's Juniata. Gary Klingensmith after 50 years is retired. I believe the guy's name is Mike Kondo. His kid Jacob is the quarterback. They're looks like they're a bit more spread this year, more like a couple years ago when they were scoring all those points. Lime Mountain was able to run the ball the last 2 weeks. Did a real good job of that. Jacob Feast, 4 touchdowns, about 262 yards this season. And Evan Herb has played real well, too. This is kind of a different Lime Mountain offense from 2 years ago with Herb, where they really wanted to get the ball to Brendan Krieger and Brevin Dirk and on the outside. This is more of the old Lime Mountain offense, kind of like what you see at Midwest, running the veer with the run game, and they've spread the ball around in the run game. They've really got, they've used that. They should win this one, and we're getting to the point where we thought they would had a chance last year to be in the Tri-Valley League race. I think that Williams Valley game is going to go a long way in determining that. And is that next week or the week after? I think it's coming up. It's fairly soon, and that's going to be key for them, is winning that Williams Valley game, because this is, I think people would admit that this is not the deepest year for the in the final year of the Tri-Valley League, and I think Lime Mountains is certainly good enough to take advantage of that, and you get that Williams Valley game that puts yourself in the driver's seat to win the final TVL title before
that'd be
before
nice.
the Mid-Penn Conference.
All right, last game of the week, 1-2 Millersburg headed to 0-3 Halifax. And I'm going to say the Indians, after snapping a 31-game losing streak earlier this year, get to 2-2 after 4 weeks.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a struggle. It's a struggle for Halifax with graduation losses. They're real young this year. This is a rivalry game, and interestingly enough, quite possibly a preview of the District 3 Class A championship game. Only 2 teams make it. Millersburg is the number 1 seed at 1-2. Halifax is the 2 seed at 0-3, and Fairfield is also 0-3 and is the number 3 seed. So, wow. I guess the winner puts themselves in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed here. I think this is a game Millersburg's able to run the ball, and when that offense is balanced, as we saw in that first game, it's tough to stop. And that's where, obviously we talk about their weakness in stopping the run, and Halifax, is not a team that's going to line up and run them over like Pine Grove and Upper Dauphin did the last 2 weeks. So this should be a good one. I agree with you. I think Millersburg gets to 2-2, and you begged all year for a win last year. And what are you going to do next week when they're 500? Wear your Indian shirt.
Yeah, that's
5-1, right?
I'll go down to Pillow and
Pillow's Upper Dolphin, buddy.
I'll go to
Enders. Enders is Halifax. Never mind. We'll just stop now.
I'll just drive down that road until I find a place selling Millersburg Indians gear.
All right.
That's all our games this week. We've got game night coming in Friday's paper with Todd's cover story on Remington Quarterman and Riley Daubert from Warrior Run. We'll have game previews plus his picks and column. Friday night, follow along at dailyadam.com with our live blog and our live scoreboard. Then Saturday we'll have full coverage of all the games. No Saturday games this week, but we'll have plenty of other good stuff in Sunday's Daily Adam. And then Monday we'll have our high school notebook. And we'll see you guys back here for week 5. Thanks for watching.
See ya.
GDK Development of Shamokin is a proud supporter of all local and youth sports. The Welsh family has been in business for 37 years and thanks you for supporting them and their local businesses, including Bruiser Sports Grill in Cole Township and the Elysburg and Sunbury Burger King restaurants. Again, thank you for 37 years of support and good luck area athletes and teams this sports season from the Welsh family and GDK Development of Shamokin.